grand amphitheater of the Galactic Coalition Academy stretched vast and echoing beneath a dome of living crystal that shimmered with captured starlight. 1,000 heartbeats, each in its own alien rhythm, filled the air with a low, uneasy hum. Rows upon rows of seats carved from void quartz held the galaxy's finest young officers in training. Vexery cadets shifted their heavy armored plates with metallic clicks that sounded like nervous knives being sharpened. Lirani representatives fluffed iridescent feathers that changed color with their rising anxiety, flashing from calm azure to warning crimson. Thaler cadets coiled their sucker-lined tentacles tightly around their seats, ink-black stress fluid already beating at the tips. A dozen other species, scaled, furred, chitinous, gaseous, sat rigid, their multiple eyes, compound lenses, and heat pits all fixed on the central dais. This was supposed to be the final test before graduation. Not a slaughter. Commander Crix ascended the dais with deliberate, heavy steps. His obsidian-black exoskeleton gleamed under the lights, 6 razor-sharp mandibles clicking in perfect synchronization as he activated the massive holoprojector. A barren, storm-lashed planet materialized above them, spinning slowly like a condemned world on display. Jagged obsidian mountains clawed at blood-red clouds. Oceans churned with sulfuric waves that crashed against shores of black sand. Forests writhed, trees with branches that moved like serpents, leaves edged with dripping barbs. Lightning forked continuously across the sky. Cadets, Crix's voice rolled out like grinding gravel across stone, deep and merciless. For 3 cycles you have trained in sanitized environments. Controlled gravity. Predictable threats. Holographic enemies that vanish when you pull the trigger. Comforting lies. He paused, letting the words sink in. The amphitheater grew deathly quiet. Out there, beyond our safe borders, lie the Deathworlds. Planets that evolution should never have blessed with life, yet did so with cruel enthusiasm. Planets where the very air tries to kill you. Where the ground hungers. Where the beasts are not content to hunt, they evolve to break you. The holo zoomed in with brutal clarity. A pack of 6-legged predators tore into the carcass of something even larger, their violet venom sizzling on contact. Microscopic horrors swarmed across a leaf, turning it black in seconds. A sudden gale stripped flesh from a fallen creature's bones in under a minute. Cadets leaned back instinctively. One young Lirani whimpered, feathers flattening completely. Crix's compound eyes swept across the assembly like targeting scanners. Today, we do not train you. We terrify you. You will enter the simulation in mixed-species squads. No modern weapons. No powered armor. Only your skin suits and whatever the world itself provides. 48 hours of real-time simulation. Your objective is simple: reach the extraction beacon. Survival is optional. Excellence is mandatory. Those who break will never face a genuine Deathworld unprepared. Those who endure may one day stand between the Coalition and true nightmares. A visible wave of dread rippled through the cadets. Claws scraped stone. Tentacles tightened until suckers popped. A Vexery subcommander named Rax slammed a massive fist into his opposite palm, the impact echoing. Finally, he growled, though his voice carried the slightest tremor. The nightmare sim. My sire said entire platoons begged for early extraction after 12 hours. Some never recovered mentally. Beside him, Lirani cadet Syrah clutched her wrist pad so hard the screen cracked. They say the gravity alone feels like drowning on land. And the things that live there. They learn from your fear. In the back row, almost invisible among the colorful chaos of alien physiology, sat the single human cadet. Elias Voss. He leaned back in his seat with deceptive casualness, arms crossed over his gray skin suit. Tall for a human, lean with corded muscle earned from a lifetime of unforgiving environments, dark hair cropped military short above storm-gray eyes. While every other cadet radiated tension, Elias wore a faint, crooked smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. It was the smile of someone listening to an old, familiar story. Syrah noticed him first. She twisted in her seat, feathers bristling aggressively. Human. Voss. You're smiling? While the rest of us prepare our wills for the afterlife. Elias met her gaze steadily. The smile widened by a fraction, almost playful. Just thinking it'll be nostalgic. Rax barked a harsh laugh that sounded like stones tumbling down a ravine. Nostalgic? Have you seen the specs, Deathworld tourist? Category 9. 1.2 Standard gravity. Atmosphere oxygen-rich but laced with neurotoxins and spores. Megafauna that track by scent and heat. Weather systems that can flay flesh from bone in minutes. They built this sim from the worst data the Coalition has ever collected. It's designed to break us. Elias stood slowly, stretching his shoulders with the lazy confidence of a man preparing for a morning run rather than hell. Designed it, huh? His voice carried a quiet, dangerous edge that made even Rax pause. Let's see how close they got. The prep bay doors hissed open like the gates of judgment. Instructors moved among the cadets like morticians, issuing thin, flexible skin suits equipped with vital monitors and emergency extraction beacons. The suits would yank them out the moment their simulated bodies flatlined. Cold comfort. Elias accepted his without fanfare, fingers tracing the unfamiliar seals. Around him, aliens performed frantic breathing rituals. A young Thaler cadet wept black tears that dissolved into mist. Another Vexary was audibly reciting battle mantras, voice cracking. Crix's final warning boomed across the bay. Insertion in 90 seconds. Remember, this is only a simulation. But the fear you feel will be real. The pain will be real. Learn from it. Or be consumed by it. Elias stepped into his drop pod last. The hatch sealed with a heavy pneumatic sigh. Through the small viewport, he watched the swirling green and black vortex of the simulator gate spinning like the maw of some cosmic predator. His pulse remained steady, almost lazy. In his mind flashed unbidden memories, childhood summers in the Australian outback where the heat tried to cook you alive. Night marches through the Amazon where the jungle whispered threats from every shadow. The Category 5 hurricane that had once flattened his training base, only for his platoon to rebuild it before the next sunset. Earth wasn't a simulation. Earth was the original. The pod lurched forward. Darkness swallowed everything. As the final klaxon wailed its mournful cry, Elias Voss allowed himself one quiet, private chuckle that echoed inside the pod. They simulated a death world to terrify cadets, he whispered, eyes gleaming in the red emergency light. Cute. The gate tore open. Engineered hell rushed in to greet its first true native. The drop pods tore through the simulated atmosphere like flaming arrows shot from the gods themselves. Inside Elias Voss's pod, brutal G-forces slammed him back into the crash harness with bone-crushing pressure. His vision tunneled at the edges, but he breathed through it, slow, controlled breaths the way he had learned during high-altitude halo jumps over the Rockies back on Earth. The pod rattled violently, metal groaning as if ready to disintegrate. All around him, the open comm channel erupted with raw panic. 9GS. My carapace is cracking, I can't. Clouds are moving. They're alive. Something's in them. Can't breathe, gravity's crushing my lungs. Elias keyed his mic, voice calm and steady amid the chaos. Stay focused. Watch for the chute deployment flare. You'll feel the snap in 3, 2, 1. His own pod jolted hard as the emergency canopy deployed with a violent whoosh. The viewport filled with pure nightmare, a bruised purple sky boiling with thunderheads, skyscraper-tall trees whipping like tortured souls in a hurricane-force gale, and rain driving sideways like steel needles. The pod smashed through the upper canopy with a splintering crash. Branches tore at the hull like claws. Final retro-rockets fired at the last second, and the pod slammed into thick, spongy moss with a wet thud. Elias rolled out fast, landing in a crouch. The air hit him like a living thing, thick, humid, heavy with the metallic tang of ozone and sweet-rot decay. Gravity tugged at his bones, 20% heavier than Academy standard, pressing down like an invisible hand trying to drive him into the earth. He exhaled sharply, adjusting his stance the way he had on Earth's high-gravity training worlds. Familiar. Almost welcoming. 20 meters away, the rest of the squad spilled from their pods in varying states of collapse. Subcommander Rax, the massive Vexary, staggered upright, armored plates slick with stress sweat. Lirani Cadet Sira's iridescent feathers were plastered flat against her body, making her look half-drowned. The Thaler twins, Quill and Ink, had coiled into defensive balls, their sucker-lined tentacles twitching. Torv, the quiet Vexery engineer, clicked his mandibles rapidly, eyes wide with terror. Commander Crix's voice crackled over the shared channel, cold and clinical. "Welcome to Deathworld 9. Local designation irrelevant. Daytime temperatures range from 35 to 48 Celsius in the shade. Night drops below freezing. Fauna includes pack predators with neurotoxic saliva, aerial hunters with 3-meter wingspans, and burrowing parasites that lay eggs in open wounds. Flora is 70% carnivorous or venomous. Gravity will fatigue you within hours. Objective: reach the extraction beacon 42 kilometers north. You have 48 hours. Good luck." The channel died with a sharp click. Rax slammed a massive fist into a nearby tree trunk. Sap hissed and bubbled where it touched his scales. "They want us dead. This isn't training, this is execution." Sira was already scanning with her wrist pad, hands shaking. Movement everywhere. Heat signatures the size of shuttles in every direction. "We need high ground, now, before something decides we're prey." Elias crouched, fingers digging into the warm, pulsing soil. It felt alive, breathing. He plucked a dinner plate-sized leaf, its edges were serrated like combat knives. He tested one against his thumb and drew a thin line of blood. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "You're all looking at this wrong," he said, voice low but carrying over the drumming rain. The squad turned toward him, desperate for any anchor. "This isn't hell. This is alive. Everything here wants to kill you because it has to survive. Respect it. Learn it. Use it." Torv's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "You speak like you've done this before, human." Elias didn't answer directly. He pointed upslope where a lightning strike had scarred a colossal tree into a natural lean-to shelter. "There. Shelter before the next storm front hits. Rax, your plates can haul the biggest branches. Sira, your eyes are sharpest, watch the canopy for movement. Quill and Ink, use those tentacles to weave vines into rope. Torv, rig the beacon tracker. I'll take point." No one argued. They moved because movement was better than standing still and waiting to die. Rain hammered down in blinding sheets as they climbed. A distant roar echoed, deep, guttural, hungry. Sira yelped as a vine lashed out like a whip, barbs sinking into her calf. Elias was there instantly, severing the vine with one clean slash of the serrated leaf. "Hold still," he murmured, slicing the barbs free with careful precision. "Squeeze the wound. We'll flush it properly when we reach water. You'll live." Sira stared at him, pupils dilated to pinpricks. "How do you know that?" Elias's smile flickered, carrying centuries of inherited knowledge. "Because the real one is meaner." They reached the lean-to as thunder cracked overhead like artillery. Inside the shelter, the squad huddled while Elias built a fire using a friction bow he fashioned from a branch and vine in under 2 minutes. The flames hissed defiantly against the driving rain. Outside, shadows moved between the trees, pairs of glowing eyes reflecting firelight like scattered rubies. Rax finally voiced what they were all thinking. "You're not afraid. Why?" Elias stared into the flames, the firelight carving sharp shadows across his face. Lightning flashed, illuminating the quiet intensity in his storm-gray eyes. "Because they simulated a death world to terrify cadets." His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow cut through the storm. "They have no idea what they just dropped us into." A long, chilling howl split the night, much closer now. The squad gripped their makeshift weapons with white-knuckled tension. Elias Voss simply smiled wider, eyes gleaming with something ancient and fierce. The jungle was waking up. Dawn on Deathworld 9 arrived like a reluctant confession. The sky bled from absolute black into a sickly yellow-gray haze, as though the sun itself dreaded rising over this cursed land. Thick mist clung to the jungle floor like the dying breath of some ancient beast, swirling around the massive tree trunks and turning every shadow into a potential threat. The squad had barely slept. Their rest had been fractured into tents, rotating watches inside the makeshift lean-to, hearts pounding at every snap of a branch, every distant roar that rolled through the ground like thunder. Elias Voss had taken the longest watch. He sat motionless with his back pressed against the lightning-scarred bark, storm-gray eyes scanning the darkness without pause. The wound on his shoulder from the barbed vine throbbed steadily, a hot reminder of the world's malice. Pain was an old companion, it kept the senses razor-sharp. Around him, the others twitched in uneasy slumber. Rax's heavy armored plates scraped restlessly against the moss. Syrah's once vibrant feathers lay flat and bedraggled against her body. The Thaler twins, Quill and Ink, remained coiled into tight defensive spheres, their sucker-lined tentacles occasionally twitching as nightmares plagued them. Torv clicked his mandibles softly in his sleep, a subconscious distress signal. Elias's hand never left the serrated leaf knife resting across his knees. He listened to the jungle's orchestra, the constant patter of rain, the wet rustle of carnivorous leaves, the low hum of insects that might be venomous. This place felt familiar. Brutal, yes. But honest. Then the harmony shattered. The predator exploded from the undergrowth without a single warning rustle. 4 meters of corded muscle and obsidian scales, 6 powerful legs ending in sickle claws that gouged deep furrows into the moss as it charged. Its jaws unhinged with a sickening wet crack, revealing triple rows of needle teeth dripping thick violet neurotoxic saliva that hissed and smoked where it struck the ground. Syrah's scream ripped through the shelter. Contact! It's here! Rax roared and lunged forward, his armored plates flaring wide in an instinctive vexury threat display. But the beast was terrifyingly fast. A casual swipe of one massive forelimb sent the heavy warrior tumbling end over end like a child's toy, crashing into a thicket with a crunch of breaking branches. Torv scrambled backward, mandibles clacking in pure animal terror. The Thaler twins froze completely, their tentacles retracting into quivering knots. Elias moved like liquid death. In one fluid motion he snatched the still smoldering branch from the fire pit, its tip glowing angry cherry red, and drove it straight into the creature's gaping maw. The beast shrieked in agony as superheated wood seared its throat and tongue. Before it could snap its jaws shut, Elias dropped low and rolled beneath its heaving belly. The heat and stench of its blood were overwhelming. His leaf knife found the exact vulnerable soft spot behind the front leg joint, the same anatomical weakness he had exploited on Earth's tigers and bears during survival courses. He rammed the blade into the hilt and twisted viciously. Hot, blackish blood sprayed across his face and chest in a steaming torrent. The predator convulsed violently, its 6 legs kicking and tearing at the earth in its death throes. One final rattling gurgle, and the monster collapsed with a ground-shaking thud. Silence slammed down over the squad, broken only by the relentless rain and their own ragged, terrified breathing. Rax pushed himself upright, one cracked plate hanging loosely from his shoulder, staring at the massive corpse in stunned disbelief. You killed it. Almost bare-handed. In seconds. Elias wiped the blade clean on the beast's hide, his breathing already steady again. Adrenaline sang in his veins like a familiar battle hymn. Not bare-handed, he replied quietly, voice calm amid the carnage. The world gave us tools. Respect them. Waste nothing. Without hesitation he began carving thick strips of meat from the haunch, his movements precise and practiced. High protein. Cook it fast, the venom denatures in heat. Eat quickly. We move in 10 minutes. The squad hesitated, stomachs churning with revulsion. But hunger gnawed deeper than fear. Syrah took the first strip with trembling hands, holding it over the revived flames until it sizzled and the toxins burned away. The meat tasted of iron, wood smoke, and something primal and electric. Strength, however reluctant, began returning to their exhausted limbs. Even the Thaler twins forced down small portions, their tentacles trembling. They broke camp and pushed north through the merciless jungle. The world fought them for every single meter. Carnivorous pitcher plants the size of escape pods yawned open at ankle height, their sweet, cloying scent masking pools of digestive acid strong enough to melt bone. Elias marked them with quick slashes as he took point. A sudden swarm of thumb-sized bloodflies descended like a living black cloud. He showed them how to smear the predator's still-warm blood across their suits, a natural repellent that actually worked. Progress was agonizingly slow and brutal. By midday the heat had become murderous. The 1.2 g gravity dragged at their bodies like iron chains wrapped around every limb. Sweat poured down Elias's face, mixing with blood and grime. Quill collapsed first, dark ink leaking from stress pores along his tentacles. Elias didn't hesitate. He hauled the Thaler onto his shoulders without breaking stride, muscles burning but unbroken. "We don't leave anyone behind. Ever." Syrah managed short recon flights despite her injured leg, reporting more heat signatures closing in. The squad's respect for the human grew with every step. Rax finally voiced the question burning in all their minds as they paused beside a steaming stream to flush wounds. "You're not just surviving this," the Vexery rumbled. "You're thriving. Why?" Elias looked back at them, his storm-gray eyes fierce, the crooked smile returning even through the blood and exhaustion. "Because they simulated a death world to terrify cadets." He gestured at the savage beauty around them. "This is just a pale shadow of home." A distant, answering howl rose from the jungle depths. The pack had smelled the blood. The squad gripped their makeshift weapons tighter and kept moving. The real test was only beginning. Night on Deathworld 9 became a living, breathing predator. The darkness pressed in from all sides, thick and suffocating, broken only by sporadic flashes of lightning that painted the jungle in stark, nightmarish relief. The pack predators, smaller, leaner cousins of the first beast they had slain, hunted in coordinated trios. They were clever. Too clever. They tested the squad's formation again and again, probing for weakness with chilling patience. Low growls echoed from multiple directions at once, never quite close enough to strike, but always close enough to fray nerves raw. Elias Voss kept them moving relentlessly. No stops longer than 10 minutes. When a cadet faltered, he was there instantly, offering a shoulder, a steady word, or a dry joke that somehow cut through the mounting panic like a blade. "Come on, Rax. On my world we'd call this a light evening stroll," he muttered once, earning a wheezing grunt from the battered Vexery. Torf's leg had swollen badly from a burrowing parasite that had slipped under his chitin during the river crossing. Dark pus leaked from the wound despite their best efforts to clean it. Syrah's iridescent feathers were singed black along one side from a lightning strike that had nearly cooked the entire group an hour earlier. The Thaler twins, Quill and Ink, moved in pained silence now, one tentacle dragging uselessly behind Ink after it had been gashed on submerged rocks. Rax's armored plates were cracked in 3 places, each breath accompanied by a wet clicking sound that spoke of internal damage. Yet they still walked. Because Elias refused to let them stop. His own shoulder burned with every heartbeat, the acid drool from the earlier aerial hunter eating slowly through the makeshift bandage. He ignored it. Pain was an old friend, one that had walked beside him through blizzards in the Himalayas and sandstorms in the Sahara. On the move, he taught them survival lessons born from Earth's own unforgiving classrooms, how to set quick snares with looped vines and sharpened sticks, how to read the wind direction for incoming storm fronts by the way the massive leaves twisted, how to turn raw fear into fuel by focusing on the next single step. "Fear is just data," he told them during one brief pause, voice low and steady. "Your body screaming that it's alive. Listen to it. Then tell it to shut up and keep going." They crested a narrow ridge at 0300 hours, bodies trembling with exhaustion. Below them stretched a vast valley carpeted in knee-high bioluminescent grass that glowed an eerie, pulsing blue-green. Beautiful from a distance. Deadly up close. The grass hid sinkholes that dropped into black nothingness and venomous serpents that coiled invisibly among the stalks. In the center of the valley, the extraction beacon pulsed steadily like a distant heartbeat, 6 kilometers away. Rax slumped heavily against a boulder, plates grinding. "We can't cross that in this darkness. We'll lose someone for sure. Maybe all of us." Elias crouched at the edge, studying the glowing field with narrowed storm-gray eyes. Lightning flashed again, revealing faint ripples where unseen creatures moved beneath the grass. "We cross together," he said firmly. "Single file. I'll probe every step. You follow exactly in my footprints. No deviations. No hesitation." They descended into the glowing valley. The grass whispered secrets around their legs, soft, deceptive, almost inviting. Twice Elias's foot found nothing but empty air beneath it. He caught himself on exposed roots at the last second, heart hammering, and calmly warned the others. Once a serpent, the thickness of his arm struck like lightning from the undergrowth. Elias pinned its head to the ground with a sharpened stick before it could sink fangs into Syrah's leg. She finished it with a heavy rock, her feathers bristling with adrenaline. Progress was agonizingly slow. Every step took minutes of careful probing. The beacon felt impossibly far. Then, at the valley floor, the pack caught up. 6 of them this time. Eyes glowing like hot embers in the bioluminescent light. They circled the squad with terrifying intelligence, cutting off retreat, testing angles. Low, rumbling growls vibrated through the ground. The air reeked of musk and blood. Elias planted his feet, leaf knife in one hand, a burning brand in the other. "Stay behind me. When I say run, you run straight for the beacon. Don't look back. Don't stop." Rax growled deep in his chest, raising his cracked fists. "We fight together or not at all, human. No more heroics." Elias's smile was a razor's edge in the darkness, fierce, wild, unbroken. "Good. Then let's give them a show they'll never forget." The charge came in a blur of scales and teeth. Elias met the first predator with a low, diving tackle, driving his leaf knife upward under the jaw and into the brain. Hot blood sprayed across the glowing grass. Rax barreled into the second like a living battering ram, using his massive bulk to smash it sideways. Syrah launched into the air despite her injuries, diving with sharpened sticks like avian missiles. The Thaler twins used their remaining tentacles to trip and bind legs, yanking predators off balance with desperate strength. Torv, feverish and half-mad with pain, wielded a burning brand like a torch of vengeance, shoving it into eyes and open mouths. It was brutal. Messy. Loud. The sounds of tearing flesh, snapping bones, and alien screams mixed with the squad's desperate battle cries. Blood, violet, black, and red, mixed with the glowing grass, turning the valley floor into a nightmarish painting. 2 predators finally broke and fled into the darkness. 4 lay dead. Elias rose last, breathing hard, new gashes bleeding freely across his ribs and thigh. The squad stared at him with something beyond respect now, something closer to awe and disbelief. "You're not just surviving this nightmare," Syrah whispered, voice hoarse. "You're enjoying it." He didn't deny it. Instead, that crooked smile returned, bloody and bright. "I'm from the original Deathworld. This is just a pale copy. But it's close enough to feel like home." They staggered onward through the glowing valley. False dawn began to stain the sky blood-red as they reached the final approach to the beacon. Only 2 kilometers remained. Exhaustion clawed at every mind and body like invisible talons. The squad was breaking, steps faltering, eyes glazing. Then the ground trembled violently beneath their feet. Something massive was coming. Something the simulation had saved for the endgame. Elias gripped his knife tighter, eyes hardening. "Stay together. Whatever it is. We face it as one." The ground trembled with seismic fury, as if the Deathworld itself had grown furious at their defiance. Ancient trees swayed violently overhead. The bioluminescent grass rippled in panicked waves. A deep, primordial rumble rose from the bowels of the planet, shaking loose stones and sending entire flocks of terrified flying creatures exploding into the blood-red false dawn. Then it erupted. The apex predator burst upward in a cataclysmic shower of soil, shattered rock, and torn roots. 20 meters of absolute nightmare given form. Its colossal body was armored in jagged, rock-like scales the color of volcanic glass, each plate thick enough to shrug off artillery. 6 tree trunk legs ended in claws that gouged massive craters with every earth-shaking step. A long, serpentine neck supported a head the size of a drop pod, dominated by a cavernous maw lined with teeth like shattered obelisks. Thick ropes of acidic drool cascaded from its jaws, hissing and smoking where they struck the ground, melting vegetation and stone into bubbling black sludge. 4 glowing red eyes scanned the valley with cold, calculating intelligence. This was no mere animal. This was the simulation's final, merciless lesson, the engineered monster designed to break even the strongest species in the galaxy. The squad froze in collective, soul-deep horror. "Extraction beacon is 50 meters directly behind it," Torv croaked, voice barely audible over the beast's thunderous breathing. The steady pulse of the beacon taunted them from the far side of the living mountain of death. There was no way around. No time to run. No hope of mercy. Rax's armored plates rattled with exhaustion and raw fear. "We're finished. That thing. It's impossible. We trigger emergency extraction now." Syrah's singed feathers trembled violently. The Thaler twins coiled into tight, ink-leaking balls. Even Torv's mandibles hung slack in defeat. Elias Voss stepped forward alone, separating himself from the group. His body was a roadmap of punishment, shoulder torn open, ribs gashed deep, blood soaking through his shredded skin suit in dark rivulets, but his storm-gray eyes burned with unyielding fire. That familiar crooked, dangerous smile returned, sharper and more feral than ever. "I need a perfect distraction," he said, voice steady as forged steel cutting through the chaos. "Rax, you and Torv hit the left flank hard. Roar, throw rocks, draw its eyes, make it furious. Syrah, stay airborne as long as you can. Drop anything heavy you find directly onto its head. Quill and Ink, stay low and mobile. Use your tentacles on the rear legs the moment I signal, trip it, unbalance it, whatever it takes. I'm going straight up the middle." Rax gripped Elias's arm with a massive claw, desperation in his compound eyes. "You'll die, human. This isn't one of your Deathworld stories. That thing will swallow you whole and not even notice." Elias looked back at his battered squad one final time. Pride and fierce affection shone through the blood and grime on his face. "Not today. Today we graduate. Today we show this simulation, and every watching cadet in the galaxy, what Deathworlders are truly made of. Trust me. Execute the plan. Now." The beast lowered its massive head and roared. The sound hit like a physical shockwave, nearly knocking them off their feet. The squad exploded into motion. Rax and Torv charged left, bellowing war cries and hurling basketball-sized rocks that clanged uselessly off the creature's scales. The beast swung its head toward the noise, acid drool spraying in a deadly arc. Syrah launched into the air on exhausted wings, snatching heavy branches and stones mid-flight and diving like a missile to smash them against the monster's skull. Each impact drew a thunderous snarl. Elias sprinted straight at it. He zigzagged with broken field precision he had learned on Earth's battlefields, using every dip in the terrain, every fallen log as cover. The beast noticed the small, insignificant prey and lunged. Its maw snapped shut where Elias had stood a heartbeat earlier, teeth slamming together with a sound like colliding starships. Elias snatched a thick fallen branch as a makeshift lever, jammed it between two rocks, and vaulted onto the creature's foreleg like it was a sheer cliff face back in basic training. The scales were jagged handholds. He climbed with desperate speed, heart hammering, muscles screaming. Acidic drool splashed his back, burning through the suit and into flesh. Pain flared white-hot, but he kept climbing. Below, the squad executed flawlessly. Rax slammed his full bulk into a hind leg. The Thaler twins lashed tentacles around another, heaving with everything they had left. Syrah scored a direct hit on one glowing red eye with a fist-sized stone. The beast reared, roaring in fury. Elias reached the shoulder ridge. He drove his leaf knife into the soft tissue behind the jaw joint again and again. The blade snapped on the fifth strike. Undeterred, he wrenched a loose scale free and used its razor edge to stab deeper. Blackish blood gushed over him. The beast went berserk. It whipped its colossal head, trying to dislodge the pest. Elias lost his grip and slid down the slick neck. At the last second he caught a ridge of bone, dangling 30 meters above the ground. His wounded shoulder tore wider. Blood sheeted down his arm in a hot torrent. Vision narrowing, he looked straight into one dinner-plate-sized eye and grinned through red teeth. "You're big," he snarled. "But I fought bigger on the real Earth. And I won." With his final surge of strength, Elias drove the sharpened scale shard deep into the creature's eye. The beast screamed in agony, an ear-shattering sound that echoed across the valley. It reared violently. Elias rode the motion, then leapt clear as the monster crashed sideways in its death throes, shaking the earth like an earthquake. The squad surged past the thrashing giant toward the beacon. Elias rolled to his feet and staggered after them, legs failing. The beast's final convulsion clipped him, sending him flying through the air. He hit the ground hard. The world tunneled. Clawed hands, feathered grips, and strong tentacles dragged him the final desperate meters. The beacon flared brilliant white. Reality blurred. They were extracted. White light swallowed the chaos. The earth-shaking roar of the apex beast, the wet thunder of its final death throes, the choking stench of acid, blood, and scorched flesh, all of it vanished in a single, disorienting heartbeat. Elias felt the familiar violent lurch of simulator extraction as the Matrix ripped them out of engineered hell and slammed them back into cold, sterile reality. They materialized in the Academy's central extraction chamber, a wide circle of reinforced deck plating. The 6 survivors collapsed where they stood, battered, bloodied, barely conscious. Medbots descended in a humming swarm, anti-grav limbs flashing. Regeneration gel hissed across deep gashes. Painkillers flooded alien and human systems alike. The sharp, clinical scent of disinfectants and cauterizing foam filled the air, chasing away the phantom smell of the jungle. Elias lay on his back for a long moment, chest rising and falling in ragged bursts. Every wound screamed, shoulder torn wide open, ribs cracked, acid burn still smoking faintly beneath the gel. But the smile never left his face. That same crooked, unbreakable, defiant grin. Around him, the squad began to stir. Rax shoved himself upright with a deep groan, one massive arm draped over a hovering medbot. His obsidian plates were cracked and scorched, yet he still looked like a mountain. Syrah's once vibrant feathers were half melted and singed black along one side, but they puffed weakly as gel sealed the worst burns. The Thaler twins, Quill and Ink, slowly uncoiled, their tentacles slick with healing foam, Ink no longer leaking in terror. Torv clicked his mandibles in exhausted relief while bots worked furiously on his infected leg. High above, the massive observation gallery was packed to capacity. Instructors, senior officers, and hundreds of cadets from every species in the coalition pressed against the transparent barriers. Every holoscreen replayed the final moments in crystal-clear, brutal detail, Elias climbing the beast's neck like a madman, stabbing into its eye, riding the colossal death thrash, and the squad dragging his broken body the last desperate meters to the beacon. A stunned, deafening silence gripped the entire gallery. Commander Crix stood motionless at the railing, his glossy black exoskeleton rigid. His 6 mandibles hung frozen mid-click. The veteran who had designed Deathworld 9 and watched countless teams shatter inside it looked visibly shaken for the first time anyone could remember. 41 hours, Crix finally announced, his gravel voice echoing through the chamber and gallery. 1 single mixed species squad. 0 early extractions until the final second. You did not merely survive Deathworld 9. He paused, compound eyes fixed on the bloodied humans and aliens below. You conquered it. Rax let out a raw, barking laugh that turned into a painful cough. We didn't survive it. He pointed a heavy, clawed hand straight at Elias. He did. The human carried us the entire way. Taught us how to read the jungle. How to fight. How to live. He killed what should have killed every one of us. Syrah's feathers flared with renewed color as she pushed herself to her feet. He smiled the whole time, she said, voice hoarse but fierce. While we were breaking, he was home. The Thaler twins waved their healed tentacles in agreement. Torv clicked rapidly. Without him, we would have triggered extraction on the first night. Crix descended the stairs to the chamber floor, his heavy steps ringing. He stopped in front of Elias, who was now sitting up, gel still dripping from his wounds. The commander's gaze bored into the human. Explain yourself, Cadet Voss. Elias stood slowly, ignoring the medbot's protests. Blood still stained his tattered skin suit, but he moved with quiet pride. He walked to the central holo display and tapped a command. The image of Deathworld 9 spun above them. Then he overlaid new data, Real star charts, real telemetry, atmospheric readings. Deathworld 9, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the now silent gallery, is a 98.7% match for my homeworld. Earth. Terra. The cradle of humanity. Gasps rippled through the crowd. We don't simulate our Deathworld, Commander. We live on it. Every single day. We evolved in 1.2G. We breathe your neurotoxins like perfume. We share our planet with predators that make your apex beast look like a house pet. You built the perfect nightmare to terrify cadets. He spread his arms, bloody and magnificent. You dropped us into my backyard. Dead silence. Then Elias reached into a sealed pocket of his skin suit and pulled out two objects he had managed to yank through the extraction matrix, a single serrated leaf, still razor-sharp, and a jagged shard of the apex beast's volcanic scale. He set them gently on the dais in front of Crix. Souvenirs, he said with that same crooked smile. From the real thing. Crix stared at the artifacts for a long moment. Then, slowly, his mandibles began clicking in what passed for deep alien laughter. The sound built, rolling through the chamber. We designed the ultimate test of courage. And the Deathworlders walked through it like it was a training exercise. One by one, the watching cadets began to applaud. First the survivors' squad, Rax slamming his fists together, Cirrus feathers flaring bright, the Thaler waving tentacles. Then the instructors. Then the entire gallery. The thunderous sound crashed down like a wave, shaking the crystal dome overhead. Later, in the recovery ward overlooking the starfield, the squad gathered around Elias's bed. Rax offered a scarred fist in respect. Next simulation, we train on the real Earth. No safety protocols. Syrah brushed a feather lightly against his arm. Teach us, Deathworlder. All of us. Elias laughed, low, warm, exhausted but genuine. Only if you promise not to smile when they try to scare you next time. That's my job. Outside the viewport, the stars wheeled past. Somewhere in the void, a small blue-green marble spun in silent defiance, beautiful, deadly, and utterly alive. The human had smiled. And the galaxy would never look at Deathworlds the same way again.